If you're a fan of anime, there's a pretty good chance you have nothing important or substantial to do for the next hour. Iceberg videos. Once upon a time, they were a plague on YouTube, and maybe they still are. I wouldn't know. I'm too busy networking with high-profile CEOs, CFOs, and various other sorts of powerful bald guys to give a shit what the YouTube meta is right now. Is it still icebergs? I have literally no goddamn idea. I associate with a much different type of berg these days. Regardless, it's no secret around these parts that I love Initial D, and am by far the best to ever talk about it. At least, I was, before I faked my death and relocated to fucking Goblin Town Wireless, or whatever the hell this new channel's called. Desperate for algorithm, and noticing that there weren't any good Initial D icebergs out there, I did the only reasonable thing a man can do. I made my own iceberg! That's right, I went through the painstaking work of thinking of a bunch of stuff, scouring the internet for obscure and niche topics related to Initial D, and compiled it into this. When I couldn't rely on Reddit to already have one, I did what no other YouTuber has ever done. Maybe, probably not. And I did it myself. So let's talk about it. Tier 1. Shit you most likely know, but maybe you don't. I don't know, I'm not you. Deja Vu, Gas Gas Gas, running in the 90s. These are the big three meme Eurobeat songs that you just kind of know from being on the internet regardless of really knowing what Initial D is at all. If somebody's making a little edit or meme that involves drifting, you can bet with like 90% certainty they're going to use one of these songs or Tokyo Drift. Ironically, none of these songs correspond to a particularly iconic scene in the series. Not to say they're bad or anything, it's just interesting to me that these ones became the big three of Eurobeat, when there are so many amazing songs featured in much more substantial or memorable moments than these three were. The arcade games. I have a conspiracy theory that by the end of the series, Initial D only existed to promote the arcade game series. There are a ton of arcade games. Most are racing related, obviously. One is a slot machine, and of course one is a pachinko machine. The ones most people are talking about though are the arcade stages, which let you, yes you, drive the cars on the mountains against your friends or just some guy at the arcade, or over the internet if the arcade you're at connected the machine to the internet. These are cool, but they'd be way cooler if Sega would just release them on home consoles. I don't want to leave my house, you sons of bitches. Multi-track drifting. This is probably the other biggest Initial D meme, which comes from a parody manga or doujin called Densa D, where cars are replaced with trains. They made Takumi even more autistic. Densa D has 4 chapters in English and like 1 million in Japanese. The series also has 4 fan-made video games about racing trains, and this is so fucking cool. They need to make an anime of this. Funimation dub. If you speak English, hate reading, and got into this series within the last 10 years, more on that in a minute, chances are this is the dub you first watched since it's the default on Hulu. Like any Funimation dub, it shares some recognizable voice actors like Chuck Huber, Todd Haberkorn, Kent Williams, Eric Vallee, Colin Clickenbeard, and dozens of other Illuminati that you recognize probably a lot from Dragon Ball. This dub is generally well received, I think. I don't know, I liked it. It kept the Eurobeat in and I didn't have to read, so A+. Well, actually, they never did 5th and final stage, so C. But those stages kind of suck, so B+. Tokyo Pop dub. This was the first English dub of Initial D, and people really hate this one. It replaced all the Eurobeat with hip-hop and rock, changed all the character names to Zach, Tack, Cole, Natalie, Kyle, Simone, Carrie, and was really bad or something. Steve Bloom voices KT, or as you might know him, Keisuke, which is kind of fun. They also published the manga in English with all these funky new names intact. Sometime around 2009, Tokyo Pop lost the rights to dub the anime and distribute Initial D manga in the West, and Kodansha took over the manga, keeping the Tokyo Pop translations to this day, and Funimation took over the dub. New Legend Films. Okay, so basically the bigwigs in Japan looked at First Stage and for some reason thought it needed a visual upgrade. So they did that, at the expense of just about everything else. These movies are kind of like the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as in they follow the source material more directly, but it ends up worse anyway. It looks pretty, but the lack of Eurobeat and slice of life, slower pacing really just ruins it for me. These movies aren't bad, they're just kind of useless beyond some eye candy. Live action movie. I made a whole video about this before I went into hiding, but in short, in 2005, some crazy fellows over in Hong Kong attempted to make an adaptation of the manga into film. They took a lot of creative liberties and restructured just about everything to try and fit 150 chapters worth of stuff into 109 minutes. The film is divisive, many people hate it, but it also has plenty of fans too, who like it as its own thing. Mainly people from Hong Kong, as it's just one of the only car movies they have, as well as starring some major celebrities such as Jay Chou and Anthony Wong. Bad official releases. Much like street racing itself is illegal, it's kinda hard to watch all of Initial D legally. No one streaming service owns the rights to the entire anime, a different studio did every stage, and third stage is a movie. If you want to finish the series, you're either going to have to shell out some big money to buy the final seasons, shell out significantly less to buy a bootleg, or find a website where someone uploaded it. Hopefully someday we can get a nice, affordable, high quality official DVD or Blu-ray box set containing the entire series, dubbed and subbed, or at least get it all on Hulu or CrunchyKid or whatever. I've actually told people just to not even bother watching past the first stage, because to an average person, telling them to go to Kiss Anime to watch a show with penis enlargement pill ads in the corner is just a little bit too far. Just pretend it ends here until whoever owns this shit gets their ass together. MF Ghost. Motherfucking Ghost is a sequel series to Initial D, and most people just don't really give a shit about it, and I don't either. To be fair, I haven't read it, so it follows a student Takumi as he races in a GT86 as he's searching for his lost dad in, like, London, I think. Fallout 3 style. It's getting an anime adaptation soon, there's even a trailer out for it, so maybe it'll finally hook us stubborn Initial D fans. But personally, I feel like Shijino, the author of both series, probably doesn't really want to keep making racing manga, but nobody else wants anything else from him. How relatable. MOVE is the band that did every Initial D opening song and a few of the ending songs. MOVE was just a band that oozes late 90s, early 2000s attitudes with their electronic mixed with rap styles, so of course they broke up in 2013. Rip in peace, MOVE. Super Eurobeat is basically the "now that's what I call music" but for exclusively Eurobeat. Several other albums featured just songs from Initial D and Initial D cover art. They put out over 250 plus of these Eurobeat compilations and are still going. Tier 2. Shit that's maybe slightly less well known, but not quite obscure yet. References in other media. Being an older and influential series, Initial D's DNA can be found in nearly any video game or movie or show that features street racing or JDM cars. Just about every racing game has the 8.6 or the RX-7s, but those aren't necessarily Initial D references in my opinion. Those cars were already popular besides the series. But some games, shows, or movies make it way more obvious. Such as in GTA Online, you can get a Karen Futo GTX, an obvious bootleg of the AE86, but then you can apply a Delivery Boy livery to it. And also, Futo is an anagram of tofu. In Forza, there's a ton of perks you can get that are all Initial D references, even a Densha Day D reference. The Steven Universe episode Beach Day Drift has an extended Initial D parody sequence where Steven Universe is now a girl or something. I've never seen this show, what the fuck is going on? The anime Lucky Star, I also have no idea what the fuck is going on, did probably the most extensive Initial D reference ever, dropping what was probably their whole budget into a short sequence where two characters have a race in full CGI, set to a specially made Eurobeat song made by MOVE, or MOEV. It has gutter technique, the sound effects, water cup, a character references Natsuki's car sick line. It's nuts. They even have these two bystanders drawn in a totally different art style. And these aren't all the references, and like everything. Dozens of other series have little nods or subtle references to the franchise. This is just, I think, some of the coolest ones. Manga anime differences. Much like how my body adapts Mountain Dew into heart disease and piss, so did the writers and producers of the Initial D anime. They took a look at the manga and decided to do some restructuring / destruction of events, erase certain characters, who I'll discuss later, and in some cases even flesh out elements that were left out of the manga. There's of course this scene of Natsuki's ass, which the studio somehow thought didn't need to happen in the anime, or the scene where Takumi and Natsuki have implied sex in the 8-6. Natsuki also worked at the gas station in the manga, not at Fast Hamburger, or the fact that in the manga, Takumi races Ryosuke after Shingo, and then races Mako and Sayuki after Ryosuke, which is just the craziest shit I've ever heard. The manga is fairly different from the anime and just includes a ton of minor changes and omissions of characters that lead people to making up really stupid fan theories to explain things that are already explained in the manga. But more on that later. Shuichi Shigino. This is the guy responsible for this shit. It's all his fault. You did this to me. You bastard! I can't talk too much about this guy since he shows up with a few more fun facts a couple times throughout this iceberg, so I'll just say he's pretty much a normal manga author, incredibly horny, based on Kichi Tsushiya's life. Kichi Tsushiya, aka the Drift King, is a legendary drifter from Japan, famous for popularizing not only drifting but also the AE86, as it was a car he'd frequently use in his drift videos that circulated throughout the Japanese drift scene throughout the 80s and 90s. Tsushiya was a consultant on Initial D when it was being written. Shigino would call him and be like, "Oh, which one was the gas again?" And Tsushiya would be like, the right pedal, I think. He also had some cameos in the series itself and helped record engine sounds for the show. As for it being based on his life, it's kinda just some shit people say as far as I can tell. It's never been directly said before. There's just some notable parallels such as both drive an AE86, both learned how to drive on mountain roads, doing deliveries for their family business. That's it. Real life locations. The mountain roads and towns Initial D takes place in are real. You can go there and crash into the very same guardrails and flip over the same gutters. Mount Akina is actually Mount Haruna in real life, but otherwise it's all the same. Here's a few more real life locations. It's awesome. And also, even the tofu shop used to be real. It was called the Fujinawa Tofu Shop in Shibakawa, Gunma, and was even used as the location in the 2005 film, which is why it looks like so exact in these photos and videos. They kept it dressed up after the shoot was finished because it attracted fans and drummed up business, but after the owner died in 2008, the shop was torn down in 2010, and the sign is in a museum now. Timeline discrepancies. The series never officially denoted an exact year when it started in 1995, but it was very clearly taking place in the late 90s. In universe, the time from Takumi's first race with Keisuke to his last with Shinji is only a little over a year, maybe like 13 to 14 months, but in real life, 18 years passed and more modern cars and technology were introduced into the story. Most people say that it has to take place around 2004, 2005, but if we want to get really stupid, we can say that the GT86 at the end forces the story into taking place in 2011 to 2012, but let's just keep believing that was non-canon and just Takumi being schizophrenic. Battle stages. Do you like Initial D but hate all the shit that makes it good, like build-up, stakes, and characters? Then watch the battle stages, they're just the races. To be fair, they did reanimate all the races from first and second stage with the third stage CGI, and even threw in some battles that were never in the original series, such as Keisuke vs. Seiji. Oh, hell yeah! Am I fucked up here, or is that Keisuke's first stage design, even though this takes place during second stage? We also got a longer version of the Takumi Ryosuke rematch from the end of third stage. Oh, hell yeah! In Battle Stage 2, there's 2 Keisuke battles with these guys. Yay. Battle Stage 3 features no new races and omits all the dialogue, but it does make the final race between Takumi and Shinji 10 minutes instead of an hour, and that is genuinely an improvement. That shit did not need to be 4 episodes long. Fuck you. Extra stages. Do you like Initial D but wish you could also jack your penis off? Extra Stage 1 time codes 1453, 1506, 3723 through 3905. Extra Stage 2 has no nudity, so it's marginally worse. Guys, I was wrong! We are so back! We do get some good old-fashioned Takumi Speedstar stuff, and Ikatani's mom makes her anime debut, time code 1453. If you wanted to learn more about the worst relationship arc in the series, a series which includes one relationship ending via suicide, then you can learn more about it here. Oh yeah, and besides the nudity, Extra Stage is about Mako going on a date with some nerd and racing the Emperor, so fuck it. Console games. Initial D had a ton of console games, here they are. I've never played any of these because I'm a fraud grifter who hasn't even actually seen a single episode of this dumb car bullshit, but yeah, I've heard there's some good ones. You got Game Boy games, PlayStation games. Oh, you're looking kind of rough there, every single character. It's a whole hoot and hollering time, maybe. What D means? D stands for penis, next question. This could be referring to either the D in Initial D, the D in Project D, or the D in Sunny D. I can tell you that the D in Sunny D stands for diarrhea, but in Project D it means dream, because Ryosuke's dream was to train people to be a burden on Japan's roads, and the D in Initial D means drift. Or maybe it also stands for dream, since Takumi also had a dream to be a burden on Japan's roads. 86-239 is what's on the license plate when Takumi sees the time-traveling GT86 at the end of the anime. But what appears to just be some numbers is actually a secret code that translates to Hachiroku ni Sankyu. When the numbers are written out phonetically and then translated into English, it becomes Thank You 86. God, I love Japanese wordplay. Isn't that right, Josuke Higashikata, aka JoJo, because of the 2 obvious Joes in your name? Tier 3. Who am I to say if you've heard of this stuff or not? But maybe rare Hot Wheels. In 2020 to 2021, in celebration of the 2-in-1 manga releases, Mattel and Kodansha held a promotion where you had to buy each volume and collect a little card or something that came with it, and then send those in, and you would receive this. A little diecast of the Tofu Shop 86 with special non-Watanabe tires, because fuck you. If you want this nowadays, it goes for like $500 on eBay. So, weigh your finances there. Now these aren't Hot Wheels, so maybe I should have just made a separate entry for these, but Jada Toys made some solid looking diecast models back in 2004. Those go for like, still expensive, but kind of maybe a bit more reasonable than 500 plus. Arcade games competitive scene. Okay, so get this. You know those arcade games I mentioned earlier? Turns out some schmucks actually play it seriously. It's not a huge scene, but from time to time Sega or Games Done Quick or just some guys will host tournaments, and they're actually pretty fun to watch. These people are insanely good at these games. I highly recommend watching some of these if you want just some simple Initial D races. Toyota GR86 commercials. In early January 2022, Toyota partnered with Initial D to promote dangerous and reckless driving to their impressionable customers through a series of animated commercials. In the first 3, Kichi Tsuchiya races Takumi in a GR86, and then in August, a much longer commercial featuring Takumi, Shinji in a GT86, and Bunta in a GR86 aired. Now, I hate to praise a company ever, but these ads are pretty cool. Really makes me want to consume product. Shinji is Takumi's brother theory. Yeah, Anna, let's go over the facts. Takumi and Shinji both drive an AE86. We all drive the same car as our brothers, don't we? They both had a father who drove an AE86. Takumi doesn't have a mom at home. Shinji doesn't have a dad at home. They're both aloof, and they both have supreme innate racing talent. I think that's it. Now, in the series, Shinji's dad is confirmed dead, so this theory kind of sucks, and I don't know why I put it here at all. Fuck you. If you believe this theory, fuck you. Initial D characters' futures. What happened to my boys after the series ended?
Where's my boy? Where could he be?
If only there were a sequel series that gave us some answers. Well, I guess motherfucking Ghost will have to do. Takumi moves to London to rally race for Toyota, where he learned he was bad on gravel, then got in a major accident and can't race no more. Now he's just a humble old teacher at a racing academy and married to Mika. Keisuke got his grind on and founded TK Mach Corporation and sells aftermarket car parts and real estate. Ryosuke is the founder of motherfucking Ghost and is also a surgeon. Itsuki and Kenji and Iketani are still dicking around at the gas station clerk style. Itsuki is married and has kids. Kenji appears to have a job where he wears a nice shirt, and it's implied that he's also married. But Iketani is still single and sulking over Mako almost 20 years later. And that is depressing as fuck. Shijino's other series. Initial D isn't the only manga this guy ever made, believe it or not. His big three are Berry Berry Densetsu, a series about motorbike racing, which even got an OVA. Initial D, which you might have heard of. You got an anime. And MF Ghost. But did you know he had a couple of that he did other things too? There's 1992 Show, which I can't find a single thing about, and I'm not even sure it exists. 1993's Tunnel Nucatera Sky Blue, which is notable for having an AE86 in it, and some people think that's Bunta, but it isn't. Do P Can, a love story centered around a track and field team, and then he wrote Initial D from 1995 to 2013. Then he did Takane no Hana, which is about... Oh jeez. It's about a failing manga artist who meets a beautiful woman. Seems like maybe a cry for help, but whatever. Then he did Sailor Ace, which seems to be about a high school girls' baseball team, and might literally be the horniest thing I've ever seen. I mean, get a fucking grip, man. I do find it very funny that most of his other work is romance-centric, considering how awkward and strange all the romance arcs in Initial D were. Shijino's A86. And while we're talking about the guy, he owns a real-life A86 and had it well before he wrote Initial D. I assume he probably put the livery on it after he wrote Initial D. His page in the Initial D wiki claims he crashed on a mountain road prior to writing Initial D, but the source attributed to it doesn't mention a crash at all. Rally sequel. I think we can all agree that out of every motorsport, Rally is the funniest one. Just a bunch of supercars crashing insane style. It's nice, it's really awesome. Anyway, in 2016, a little over a year after the anime ended, Shijino gave an interview where he says, quote, "When Initial D was starting, I considered highway racing and rally racing. From here on, I'd like to continue drawing manga, and if I do Initial D 2, I'd like to make it about rally racing." That would have been so cool. I don't know why he chose Circuit. Circuit sucks. Motherfucking Ghost revealed that Takumi did go into Rally for a good number of years, so there is still room to go back and make a threequel there and maybe flesh out the vague backstory he was given. I don't know though, I'm sure he's probably got a couple ideas for mangas about more excuses to show panty shots. I know that's where his heart really is these days. Audio dramas. Sometime in the 90s, the crack-smoking maniacs in charge of Initial D decided to roll the dice and try to make some audio-only Initial D side stories. It's like watching the show with your eyes closed. And also, I don't speak Japanese. They made 4 of these. Black Lightning, which is translated and on YouTube, is about Nakazato and the Night Kids. Drift King Youth Graffiti is about Bunta's past and has another cameo with Kichi Tsuchiya. Lonely Driver Legend finally reveals the origin of the Akina Speedstars, and apparently features the only Kenji race, and Mako and Sayuki, which was adapted into Extra Stage 1. All are on YouTube, but if you don't speak Japanese, I hope you kept your rope and sturdy beam handy. Tofu tax, or Takumi tax or Drifto tax, refers to the fact that thanks to the popularity of this series, buying an AE86 is now extremely expensive, usually around 20k, which doesn't seem that bad until you remember it's not a new car, it's a car from like 1985, and the maintenance alone is gonna add on like, I don't know, like $400 million more. Now, it would be unfair to Initial D to actually genuinely say it's all their fault, and without Shigino putting pen to pad, these Corollas would be used as a compost barrel in the backyards of millions. No, that's ridiculous. The AE86 is, in addition to being iconic from a cartoon, it's also a very fun car that enthusiasts have been praising since it was released. That's why it was used as the main car of the series. I couldn't tell you exactly why it's so revered from a technical standpoint. I know there's something to the mechanics of it, so I'm going to leave this one to the comments because I know there's plenty of car guys who really want to tell me what exactly makes this car special, and I wouldn't dare deprive them of that euphoria. Type away. Speaking of typing, Ryosuke's fastest typing theory. Back in the late 90s, when everyone was getting online for the first time, they couldn't figure out how to make words from their brain appear on the screen, so they called on their favorite cartoon characters to help them learn typing. You had Mavis Baking, Garfield, Mario, and of course, Ryosuke Takahashi from acclaimed street racing manga and anime series Initial D. They made 2 of these games, because who could be satisfied with just one? The first game was released on PC, Mac, and PS2, even came with a keyboard, while the sequel was just Mac and PC. These games just take scenes from the show and then pause them in the corners and make you type out Japanese words to continue watching. Both are pretty short, each only have 5 battles from first and second stage, but they have Eurobeat, so a 10 out of 10 basically. Like I keep telling you guys, but you never listen, I don't speak Japanese. So this game would be useless to anyone who speaks freedom syllables, but I do find it amusing to imagine someone in Japan actually getting this for their kids or learning to type on these programs. Personally, I think a game where you have to continually type correctly to drive faster in a more fluid and interactive way, like Typing of the Dead, has a ton of potential. Yeah, I know Type Racer exists, but let's get something more 3D and epic out there. And tie it in with Initial D to make sure at least 9 more people buy it. Tier 4. Probably obscure, but if you disagree, just assume I didn't give a shit about the placement of anything. Dead Mother. The status of Takumi's mother is an often discussed topic amongst fans. The only thing we can really say for sure is that she's not around. In the live action movie, she merely left the family due to Bunta's drinking, but she's only mentioned in the anime once in third stage. But all Takumi says is that he doesn't have a mother. Well, in manga chapter 16, when Ikitani has a ride-along with Takumi, the line, "breaking like revenge for a dead parent" is said, or thought, implying that Takumi's mother is dead since his dad is incredibly alive, so it can't be him. Then in chapter 719.7, a fun little side story about Takumi's 14th birthday where he tries to rebel against his dad but he's too poor to be a delinquent. There are a few mentions of his mother, first by this fruit vendor who remarks that he looks like his mother, then a few pages later Takumi says, "My mother is gone." Reddit user Wanked offered this theory, which I think is actually really cool and I wish it were canon. I like to think that when she was pregnant with Takumi, there were complications one night while she and Bunta were out on the tofu delivery. Bunta put all his skills into tackling Akina on the way to the hospital, but they didn't make it in time to save her. Takumi was born during the fastest downhill in Akina's history. I mean, holy shit, that last line is the coolest thing I've ever heard. That's beautiful. Why didn't you think of that? Why didn't you do that? Mountain Vengeance is notable for being the worst Initial D game, conjured up by Canopy Games, a studio who would later go on to move into an office that actually had a canopy instead of a roof, because they lost so much money on this game, and based off specifically the Tokyo Pop version of Initial D, which means they used the localized names and only put one song in the game. The only song in the game is Initialize. So I really hope you like that song. Bunta is a drug lord. This is a fan theory popularized by YouTuber Random Callsign as an April Fool's Day joke that aimed to explain how Bunta was able to afford upkeep on the 8.6, buying Impreza and drinking smoke all day. Get this, the tofu wasn't tofu. It was actually drugs. You know, the illegal kind. Other people have taken this theory and really ran with it. Reddit user Hero of Memes, username sucks, made a slideshow to support the theory further with some hard to refute evidence such as Bunta doesn't want anyone to die in his shop and the shop has no customers. Could this theory actually hold some weight? I mean, why would it matter if Ikutani died unless it might draw attention to the tofu shop? You know, it doesn't make sense that they have so much when nobody's ever at the shop and the morning delivery isn't even that much tofu. Interesting things to consider here. Dreaming of Akina. When you think of fanfiction, generally you think of stuff like My Immortal or Bought by One Direction, but fanfiction's not all just the ramblings of complete maniacs, some of it is actually good. Dreaming of Akina is an initial D fanfiction by fanfiction.net user Sane that explores Bunta's past all the way from getting his driver's license to the day he teaches Takumi to drive. I haven't read the entire thing, but from what I have read, it's pretty damn good, and the general initial D fanbase agrees, usually pointing others to it anytime someone suggests a Bunta prequel series or anything like that. Ryosuke is in med school. I feel weird putting this one so far down because it is said during the series, but it's a real blink and you'll miss it lore detail. But yeah, Ryosuke's in med school, his dad is a surgeon, and it's implied that the brothers are just using his money to fund Project D, and he's just chill with it for some reason. This must be like $100,000. Like it's got several vans, and they all got like parts in it, and they're doing new tires like this is nuts. Bunta hates tofu. So in the manga, there were these little bio pages that tell us fun facts and info about the characters, and under Bunta's dislikes it lists tofu. Wait. Holy shit. He said it. You know when you're watching a movie and they say the title of the movie in the movie?
Because he stole John Wick's.
Well, I was reading through the last chapter of Initial D, and I couldn't believe that this was the final sentence of the series. As for a dream, it's very tiny, but I want to raise world-class drivers who, from the Gunma mountain passes, will spread and flap their wings. I'll discover such raw diamonds, polish them, and send them out into the world. That is my wish that I've put in that initial D.
He said it! He said it!
Ryosuke and Keisuke's cousin. You know, I talked about it earlier, you gotta change things and you adapt a manga to an anime. Sometimes stuff gets cut or rearranged, and the cousin of the Rotary brothers happens to be one of the handful of characters to get erased from existence. Sugami is their high school-aged cousin who I, at one point, thought Ryosuke was romantically involved with because of his bio page saying he had an affection for her. But none of that is apparent in the manga. She only appeared in 2 chapters, chapter 39 and 78, then she's never seen again. Ryosuke was tutoring her, but she literally doesn't factor into any plot relevance at all, unlike some other cut characters who actually do, and their exclusion has caused anime fans a ton of confusion, but that's for later on. Vocal Battle Album. You ever try to listen to music, but you can't because it isn't sung by the Japanese voice cast of Initial D? Yeah, me too. So the good folks at Avex forced the Initial D cast to sing various songs from the series. They did 3 of these albums. The first is mostly Eurobeat or MOVE songs sung by the cast. The second album is a soundtrack for the audio dramas with some songs sung by the cast and the other songs just being original soundtrack like instrumentals. And the third and final is an album of songs just sung by the Takahashi brothers, which has retroactively become a JoJo reference, because Keisuke is voiced by Tomokazu Seke, who also voiced Enrico Pucci in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Ryosuke is voiced by Takahito Kiyasu, who voiced Dio Brando in that same series. Isn't that just freaking crazy? The other notable duet has to be Unsho Ishizaka, Joseph Joestar's voice actor, goddamn, and Kaiichi Tsuchiya in the song 8-6. Man, they got this guy to sing a song. Anything's possible, kids. Takumi shoes. Takumi owns dozens of pairs of shoes throughout the series. First some New Balance 574s, bootleg Jordan 1s, bootleg Nike Dunks, New Balance 515s, bootleg Jordan 2s, New Balance 574 Classics, and finally, Chuck Taylors. Okay, maybe they do run drugs. This is too many shoes for a poor boy. You're telling me a guy who owns one white t-shirt has 7 pairs of shoes? Nah, this totally breaks my suspension of disbelief. Tier 5. I feel safe calling this stuff relatively obscure, but again, I don't know. Avex copyright trolling. Back in 2018, well before I had ever seen Initial D, the community was laid at the mercy of Avex, the company that owns the rights to Initial D. Eurobeat soundtrack. But for some unknown reason in 2018, they just went apeshit and started claiming almost anything related to Initial D. Many people were pretty pissed off about this. Apparently there was a channel taken down called Bunta Fujiwara that had uploaded everything from first to fourth stage but got taken down, which, I don't know, call me crazy, seems maybe justifiable, but I've heard there was a ton that wasn't. Lots of memes got taken down. I remember hearing that they used to take down videos that just had the sounds of the 4AGE engine. I think these days it's calmed down. I've been lucky so far as I just don't use any audio and video from Initial D together at the same time, like no unedited clips, but who knows, maybe. Lost sound files. Sound files just refer to the OST, not the Eurobeat, but the other stuff that plays throughout the series, such as or this one. Most of these were released and can be found online pretty easily, which is why I have them and use them all the time. But there are about 50-ish unreleased tracks according to YouTube user InitiateD, who made 2 compilations showing each unreleased track.
Well, I couldn't possibly solve this mystery. Can you?
Initial D themed restaurants. Every restaurant needs a hook to get customers in the door. Sure, good food will get people talking, but what if there were familiar faces and characters you loved on the walls? The licensed character restaurant may have been pioneered by business entrepreneur Nathan Masry and his world-famous intergauging store Garfield Eats, but he's not the only one using beloved IPs to draw attention to his business. Other savvy go-getters decided to try the formula out with Initial D, a series that doesn't even have an official full DVD release nearly 10 years after concluding. I believe there are at least 4 in the world. There's the Fujiwara Tofu Cafe in El Monte, California, there's the Fujiwara Tofu Shop in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, there's D's Racing Cafe Garage in Gunma, Japan, and finally the Fujiwara Tofu Concept Shop in Singapore, South Korea. CGI clipping. Oh boy, this one is gonna take a pretty long time to explain. Sometimes the CGI does this. Battle Digest. Remember the battle stages? Well, they did it again, but for the new Legend movies, and put Eurobeat back in, baby! We are so back! If you're wondering why this is so far down, well, have you ever heard of it? I hadn't. Oh, you had? Okay, fine, whatever, this is fine, I won't say anything else. Nope, no, that's alright, I'll just pack them and leave, no big deal, whatever, it's fine. Oh, you heard of everything, okay, sorry, I'll delete the whole fucking video. DeLorean. There's a DeLorean in a scene or something. idforms.net. idforms.net, which is a subset of go2id.net, that before the subreddit was the biggest Initial D fan site on the internet. If there were others, they're long gone and completely lost. It's kinda neat to just dig through the ashes of these old forums and see what was going on back then, what it was like to be an American Initial D fan in 2002. It's mostly just people being mad at Tokyo Pop. Initial D x Shibukawa. As a thank you for painting Shibukawa as a haven for belligerent street racers and hooligans, the town of Shibukawa, Gunma, held a celebration for the series' 25th anniversary. They had Initial D wrapped buses and taxis, manhole covers, and stamps. Wow. What a thing to see, huh? Trading card game. In August of 2003, Tokyopop released a competitive trading card game based off Initial D. I've heard a lot of people say it's a lot like Magic the Gathering, but with cars and parts instead of monsters and wizards or whatever that shit is. So you get a car and then you construct your deck around making your car better than your opponent's car. Then you each play maneuver cards to try and beat the other guy. The races have 3 stages: a corner or curve, you want maneuverability; a straightaway, you need speed; and then another corner. There's a bit more to it than that. It honestly seems pretty cool, but it wasn't super popular at the time, meaning it's a bit spendy to collect and actually play these games. As far as I can tell, beyond this Tokyopop promo video, there's no footage of anyone like really playing this game, but it seems fun in theory. A trading card game that isn't fantasy shit could theoretically reach a new audience, but I guess there's just not that much overlap in tuners and deck builders, even though they're both extremely expensive hobbies. Tier 6. This stuff is obscure, but there's still a chance you know it. MOVE cameo. Remember way back when I talked about the band MOVE? Of course you don't. Well, anyway, MOVE had a cameo in 4th stage. Look. There they are. I'll just group this in here. They also did a music video where they get transported inside 4th stage like a reverse Fat Albert movie situation. Why 5th stage never got a dub. When Tokyopop lost the Initial D license in 2009, only 4 stages of Initial D were out, so that's all Funimation was able to get the rights to dub. You would think that would give them claim to also dub any future episodes, but no, it didn't. The possibility of them buying the rights to do 5th stage would come down to whether or not the first 4 stages did well for them financially, which they didn't, as is indicated by them releasing the series under the Save brand, something they use just to sell a series on the low and squeeze any money out of it. Essentially, Initial D is going to have to get a lot more financially alluring to them to consider investing money into dubbing the final stages. Hoop Days, dear boys. If anyone's seen my video on the live action movie, you'll know about this already, but Hoop Life or Dear Boys was a high school basketball anime made by studio ACGT, the studio who did 4th stage, that was notable not only for also featuring a Eurobeat soundtrack, just like Initial D in case you didn't know that, but also having a main protagonist named Takumi Fujiwara, and including a scene where the characters go to a movie theater and watch Initial D. Man, isn't that just so freaking crazy, guys? Mercedes guy is Mickey's father. No. Also, what? Why? Mercedes guy is Mr. Takahashi. This one has slightly more credence to it because there is a Mercedes in front of their house. But also no, Mercedes guy is Bunta. Not only do they obviously not have the same voice, but there is clearly no Mercedes in front of their house. No and stupid. Mercedes guy, true identity. It's kind of hilarious that people have legitimate fan theories about who this character is, because it's actually directly stated and confirmed in the manga. The identity of the Mercedes guy is Shirashi's father. Who's Shirashi? Good question. She's the one who put the note in Takumi's locker telling him about Natsuki's arrangement. In the manga, she calls him anonymously with this information because she has a crush on Takumi and wants him to leave Natsuki. So there it is. It's a character who wasn't in the anime but was in the manga. That's why all your theories were stupid. Okinawa Bulls. Okay, so remember when Ikutani and Mako meet and there's a sign for Kamamishi? What am I saying? Obviously you remember that. Well, anyway, because of that and because the dish is actually called Toge no Kamamishi and Initial D has a few toges in them, they linked up with Okinawa and made some special Initial D branded Kamamishi bowls that feature original artwork of Mako again, Mako and Sayuki, and Takumi eating a bowl next to the 8-6. Promotional discs. Back when the internet was slow, stupid, and useless, the best way to get epic shit like wallpapers, screensavers, mouse pointers, or anything else of that sort was promotional discs loaded with little stuff. Initial D had 3 of these as far as I can find. Collector's disc, which had character sheets, viewable models of the cars, clips from the show, and info about the Japanese voice actors. And of course wallpapers, screensavers, and icons. Then there was Initial D, the movie accessory stage, which had a, get this, calendar program, screensavers, wallpapers, and sound effects. Finally, at least I think finally, there was Initial D Type D, which I think is actually the most interesting one, but for some reason it has no wiki article. This one, of course, has wallpapers, mouse cursors, screensavers, character profiles, battle summaries, a quiz game you can play to unlock more art, and 2 exclusive games. One is a pipe game where you have to guide your car through a course, then a 10-track long game where you navigate through some mountain roads. And of course, what Windows XP era promotional disc would be complete without calculator, calendar, and clock skins? Mobile phone games. For as long as mobile phones could play games, there have been Initial D games on phones. There are 5 that are still relatively possible to get and emulate, and those are Destiny Showdown, Flurry, Show Off, Second Stage, and Public Road Drift Legend. These games were made by Chinese companies and only released in China, which makes it all the more insane that these are the ones we still have. More on that later. Making of specials. You ever look at this and wonder, how the hell did they do this? Computer. There are 3 making of specials for Initial D. First, there's Excite Battle Special, which aired before Act 20 of the first stage and shows us for the first and I think only time the CG production team for that season. Then there's a little something called Making the Movie for third stage, which does a very similar thing. And then finally, Initial D to the next stage, Way to Project D, hosted by Kaiichi Tsuchiya. This is the worst one.
Know your fucking place, trash.
In fact, it actually has no behind the scenes, but the subtitles do refer to Kaiichi Tsuchiya as John, which is interesting. Did they localize a real man's actual name? Kaiichi Tsuchiya, at this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within John. Yes. Anyway, Making of the Movie is the only one that's entirely behind the scenes. The other 2 are mostly padded out with recaps of races from the anime, especially Way to Project D, which is nearly 2 hours long and is almost entirely that. Tier 7. The most obscure and interesting stuff I've found. Magazine CD book. Pretty damn limited information on this besides the fan wiki description, which says it's an audiobook that adapts up to the end of the battle with Keisuke, and it features the same voice actors as the anime. You can actually listen to this online, but again, like the audio dramas, if you don't speak Japanese, you're fucked. Future GPX Cyber Formula D8. I found this while digging through the forums where people were discussing it. Future GPX Cyber Formula was another 90s racing anime, but this time in the future, and some maniacs made a parody crossover doujin with Initial D. There doesn't seem to be any chapters freely available online anymore, but I found a website, which we will be discussing in a second, that appears to let you buy it physically. People on the forum say it was pretty funny, but it doesn't appear to be freely available online as of now. I did find another website called Saruga-YA that has most of the series for like $2 to $3 an issue each, so if someone wants to get these and translates them, it won't set you back too much, but if nobody gives a shit, man, what a dark future that would be. The immense volume of Initial D gay erotica. You know, they always say racers don't need girlfriends. But what about boyfriends? That's the question that yaoi boy love authors and artists set out to answer. And holy shit have they answered, because there is so goddamn much gay Initial D erotica. Now look, I'm not stupid. Obviously I knew there'd be some. Every fanbase has their share of intellectuals depicting scenes of their favorite characters being gay. It's pretty normal, it's just, I didn't think there would be so many for Initial D. The website I'm looking on right now is just for Initial D yaoi that was actually physically published to real books with real pages that you can touch with your fingers. There's 61 pages and 3,637 results as of writing this. Think of how many are just online digital only. Why? I mean, okay, let's think about it logically, okay? Initial D has only like 10 female characters, if we're being generous, so it's definitely a series for duh boys, if you know what I mean. Now, I'm not mad, in fact, I'm not even disappointed. In a weird way, it's actually kinda inspirational. If these people can get their fanfiction about what if the Takahashi brothers were gay with each other and also gay with Takumi published, even though there's already over 3,000 others with that exact same premise, then what's stopping you from making what you want to make? There's an audience out there for everything. If you have a dream, rage it. fucking rage your boner. Initial D, radio stage. In 2012, to promote the 5th stage anime, there was a bi-monthly podcast radio show. I'm unclear if this was really on the radio or just online. Hosted by DJ Oda Chihao and Shinichiro Miki, the voice of Takumi Fujiwara. 14 episodes were recorded, or at least 14 episodes are archived online, by Nico video user Here's the Tail End. Once again, they're out there, you can listen to them, but if you don't speak Japanese, it's over for you. You can never listen to the official Initial D podcast, ever. Or I guess someone could run it through like an AI translator program. Tokyo Pop Letter to Initial D Fans 2002. I mentioned in the first layer that people really dislike the Tokyo Pop version of Initial D and always have. But what if I told you Tokyo Pop not only knew this, but put out an open letter to the fanbase explaining why it had to be this way? Well, here it is. Read it and weep if it were still 2002. I'm not gonna read it all because reading sucks, but it's nothing shocking really. The people at Tokyo Pop just wanted to bring a cool show over to a new Western audience and keep it as faithful as they possibly could, but the investors and people in charge kept insisting that the show be aimed at children and have all the Japanese bullshit taken out. They fought as hard as they could to keep the kanji on the side of the car and in the logo, and keep the show set in Japan, but at that point in American culture, they needed the kids to like it more than the adults and teenagers that the show was actually supposed to be aimed at. They viewed the best strategy was to dumb it down, remove the sexual innuendo, the cursing, the gay techno music, and make it as easily digestible as possible for an audience who might not even know what Japan is, much less Italian disco. Towards the end of the letter, they express a desire to someday be able to release the original uncut versions of the manga and TV show in the West with all the Japanese and techno music they wanted. It's kinda nice to know that even they didn't really want to butcher the series, they were just forced to because they thought this was their best bet to secure a Western audience for the series. Even if people hated what they did to it, they still might like it enough to seek out the original version, which tons of people did through file sharing websites, and the series might not have flourished in the West when it did. Love them or hate them, their hearts were in the right place, for the most part. Lost mobile phone games. So I brought up the mobile phone games we still have in the previous layer, but there were loads more that are seemingly lost media. Drift Battle Special Version, Drift Battle 2, Project D, 3D Battle Plus, 2 Sign, 3 Restore, Ace Stories, 3D Battle Stage, Social Game, Public Road Fastest Battle, and Mobile Stage, and one just called Initial D. So good luck with the SEO on that one. If you want to know more about these games, check out Fujiwara Tofu Shop's video on the topic, I'll link it in the description. They go way more in depth, and as far as I can tell, they're the ones who discovered these games even existed. Huge shout out to them, especially for leaving a Google Doc with your sources so I could get screenshots of these games. Tayo RC trading cards. Did it blow your mind when I showed you the Tokyo Pop trading card game? Were you like, whoa, I didn't know about this? Well, buckle up, bucko, because this is so obscure. I barely know a goddamn thing about it. I was searching eBay to see how expensive packs of the Tokyo Pop version were these days when I came across this. Initial D Tayo RC trading card, an unopened sealed pack. What was this? The seller had no idea either, just said they bought it in Japan and weren't sure how many cards were in the pack. The Kenta card they did have when ran through my translation app reveals it's not a trading card game, they're just for collecting and staring at, I guess. Searching Google, I only found Tayo's line of Initial D RC cards from the early 2000s, but no listings suggesting that they came with a pack or anything. So I searched again, but this time in Japanese, and found this listing on Okfan, which showed way more cards but had no additional information. Whatever these are, I don't know. Lost licensed Flash games. Once again, found out about this while digging through the forums. I can say for sure that one Flash game existed because I found it and is playable on Flashpoints. It's Zip Zap Special Edition featuring Initial D. Race Itsuki, Keisuke, Ryosuke, and Bunta. Zip Zaps was, or is, a brand of RC cars that did an Initial D collab in the early 2000s. Why wasn't it on the iceberg? I don't know, it's fine, here. Zip Zaps RC cars. Okay, so the toy car. Then other people in the forums were discussing 2 other unknown Flash games. First, a Flash game made for the Hong Kong live-action movie, then something called Dream Stage. There's so little about these games, status definitely unconfirmed on the last two. The only other still available Flash game I can find is Drift Stage, but that's just a fan game. They were seemingly at one point sending each other the actual Flash game files through DMs and posting screenshots, but the links are all long dead. Layer 8. The secret, darkest, and craziest layer. Takumi branded motor oil. And there it is. The Initial D iceberg is finished. If I missed anything, you can just put a cold steel to the back of my head and squeeze, because I've unequivocally failed the community if there's even one obscure piece of something that I didn't put in this goddamn thing. But I hope you enjoyed my experiment where I edit an iceberg with the same level of quality as I would any other video, and immediately learned why almost nobody else has ever done that before. It's really annoying. And time consuming. If you want to see more iceberg videos from me, you can get fucked. I don't even like iceberg videos in the first place. But if you want to see me do other stuff, such as analyze movies or sometimes a video game, check out my channel. I got shit on the first 3 Fast and Furious movies, Gamer, Shrek, and more coming out now that I got this massive, stupid clickbait time sink out of the way. And if you just want Initial D stuff from me, well, don't get your hopes up. I'm not married to this series. There's other stuff I like way more. But this iceberg showed me that there's still plenty to go deep on. Maybe someday I'll play every Initial D game, Recollect style. But that'll take so goddamn long, so never mind, forget I even said that.